Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. If you jump on here a evening, feel free to leave a comment section down below. Make sure to give the video a like, thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so and share the video on all social media platforms. Tell your friends, tell your family about the channel. Make sure you click that bell so you'll get notified whenever we go live. Now, if you're new to the channel, I'm Brandon Todd, Ref Brandon as they call me. July will be 19 years that I've been a professional wrestling independent referee. I say July, I know it is July, but it's coming up towards the latter part of July because I started in late July of 2007. So fixing to celebrate 19 years of doing this, and hopefully I've got at least 19 more in me. But tonight I want to do another preseason prediction for college football. If you've been following along, I've done, I guess, 8 or 9 so far. I did LSU. I've got them going 10-2. Now I'm doing all this off the cusp, off the top of my head, so some of this could be wrong, but if memory serves, these are my predictions. LSU 10-2, Florida State 6-6, Miami 11-1, Florida 7-5, Baylor 7-5, North Carolina 5-7, Ohio State 9-3, Penn State 9-3, and I think that's everybody I've done so far. So it's time to do another one. Now, if you look at this roster just for 2026, it's hard to see them not being good this year. If they're not good this year, then it's an absolute disaster. And when I say good, I'm not saying they're making the playoffs, but I'm saying, if they go worse than 8-4, then you could say it was an extreme disappointment. But the reason why the title of the video is, how will the new coach do? Because they have a new coach. So, he's coming in, and with this talent, they should be good this year. But is it sustainable? Don't know. I don't think it is. I think the guy's going to be an abject failure. But we will find out. Talking about the Ole Miss Rebels. Now, if you look at Pete Golding, to me, Pete Golding looks like a guy that has not washed his hair since he was in high school. Has not brushed his hair since he was in middle school. Looks like he's drunk every day of his life. Now, he looks like he still thinks he's in college. He looks like 100% frat boy. If you've ever seen a frat boy and you picture what one would look like, look at Pete Golding. And that's why I don't think his head coaching tenure will last long, and why I don't think it'll be a success, because he looks like he's got 17,000 things on his mind that are more important than being a college football coach. Now, of course, he's already admitted that he is a cheater, because when you come out and say, if the NCAA comes after me, I'm going to tell on everybody, that's the admission of guilt. That's just you saying, yeah, I'm guilty, but I'm going to make sure that if I get caught, that I tell on all the other ones as well. So we already know what kind of coach he is and how underhanded he is. But this year, John David Baker is their offensive coordinator. He was on the floor, but, he left, and now he's back as OC. So he's back where he was a couple years ago, but he's got to upgrade his title now. And then Patrick Tony is the defensive coordinator. And of course, Kewan Lacey is one of the best running backs in the country. And starting at quarterback will be the guy that's been in college since about 1981, Trinidad Chambliss. Now, Trinidad Chambliss was asked about, I guess, 3 weeks ago now. And of course, the question was kind of dumb because you knew what the answer was going to be. But he was asked what game on the schedule is he looking most forward to. And of course, his answer obviously was LSU. But if you recall, after Lane Kiffin left Tennessee, the first time he went back there as the opposing coach, he had everything but a kitchen sink. Well, it's going to be that way this time when Ole Miss plays LSU. I don't know if it mattered if this game was played in California. I think you would have Ole Miss fans travel out there just to throw things at Lane Kiffin. So when those two teams play this year, Lane Kiffin better have some top-notch security. Now, I know all head coaches already have security, but I'm talking about he better have a security guard on all 12 sides, all 6 fronts, and all 8 backs. And there better be a security guard standing at every seat in the crowd, because if not, I'm telling you, that night Lane Kiffin's going to get seriously hurt by somebody. I can see it already. I'm seeing the future. It's going to happen. But they open up only by playing 2 of their non-conference games. Not all 3, just 2. Then the third one will be the week before the end of the season rivalry game against Mississippi State. Open up on a Sunday against Louisville on September the 6th. And then they play Charlotte on September the 12th. The Louisville game should be a good game. The Charlotte game should be a blowout. And then they start conference play the week after that on September 19th against LSU. And I'm sure you'll have the ESPN Game Day show there. You'll probably have the Fox Sports 1 Game Day show there. You'll probably have the SEC Nation Game Day show there. You'll probably have any kind of radio show that's on location. That'll be there. That game may end up being an absolute blowout, one side or the other on the field. But the lead up to it and the hype up to it and all the things going to be said about Lane Kiffin, it's going to be entertaining television and entertaining radio for that whole entire week. Then they wrap up September on the 26th against Florida. And then they get their bye week the first week in October. So for Ole Miss, it's 4 games, a bye week, and then 8 games to wrap up the regular season. They start October on the 10th against Vanderbilt. Then they play Missouri on October 17th. Texas on October 24th. And then they wrap up October on Halloween against Auburn. And now in November, outside of the easy game the week before Mississippi State, November has some tough games on it. They start November on the 7th against Georgia. Then the 14th, they play Oklahoma. And then they play Wofford the week before they wrap up the regular season on that Friday after Thanksgiving, 27th, against Mississippi State. If I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong, but if memory serves me correctly, Ole Miss and Mississippi State used to be on Thanksgiving night. Of course, it's not now because the NFL is on, but I'm almost positive when I was in high school, every year on Thanksgiving you had Ole Miss and Mississippi State on Thanksgiving night, because back in those days, most years both those teams were not any good. So the only time they had exposure for their rivalry game was on Thanksgiving night, because they played on Saturday. Nobody would watch, because back in those days you only had, 5 or 6 channels that carried football. It ain't like now when you've got 112. Back then, you only had 5 or 6. Well, it's rivalry Saturday, and you've got all the other rivalry games. You're not going to put on Ole Miss and Mississippi State. So the only way their rivalry got any kind of recognition or notoriety at all was to be on Thanksgiving night, when it was the only college football game on, and there was no NFL back in those days on Thanksgiving night. So you had a chance to get exposure. Back in those days, you had an NFL game at noon like you do now, an NFL game at 4 like you do now, but you didn't have an evening game. So you had the Cowboys, like always, and the Lions, like always, Thanksgiving afternoon, and then Thanksgiving night you had Ole Miss and Mississippi State. But anyway, back to Ole Miss's schedule. Believe it or not, I think they lose to Louisville. I think Louisville is going to have by far one of the best running games in the country. Might be the best running game in the country. If not, it's definitely top 5. And I think Ole Miss is going to come out of the gate already looking forward to LSU, because the week before LSU you play Charlotte. You're not going to focus on Charlotte. If you don't beat Charlotte by at least 20, shut the program down. Charlotte's awful. So I think since you play Charlotte week 2, you're going to come out of the gate already focused on that week 3 game against LSU, not realizing how good Louisville is. I think Louisville upsets Ole Miss, but it's a non-conference game, so in the grand scheme of things, yeah, it's an upset, but it's not going to affect you any later on in the season, as long as you do what you should do and supposed to do the rest of the season. But I think Louisville beats them, and then I think they lose conference games to Texas and Georgia. Hey there, Troy. Glad to have you here. So, yes, I've got them beating LSU on the 19th. But I think they beat Texas, and I think they beat Georgia. I just think Georgia and Texas, from top to bottom, are just better than Ole Miss. Now, Pete Golding may be a better game day coach than Lane Kiffin. You know, Lane Kiffin was a phenomenal recruiter and always had a great game plan when he was, coaching offense. But as a head coach, he makes some baffling in-game decisions and always has. So Pete Golding may be a better in-game coach than Lane Kiffin is, but is he going to be able to bring in the talent consistently that Lane Kiffin does? Probably not, but just looking at him, he just looks like he's more worried about women and getting drunk and not taking a bath than he is coaching football. Hey there, glad to have you here. So I'll go with Ole Miss finishing 7-2 in the SEC with conference losses to Texas and Georgia, and 9-3 overall, losing to Louisville. So a 7-2 conference record is pretty dang good, and a 9-3 overall record is pretty dang good. Don't know if that's playoff worthy or not. It all depends on what everybody around them does, because Ole Miss doesn't have a rich, long withstanding college football resume to where they're going to get the benefit of the doubt when it comes down to them and somebody else. More than likely, if it's one of the blue bloods or Ole Miss going to the playoffs, they're going to pick the blue blood. So it all depends on, how it shapes out around them. But I do think 7-2 in the SEC, 9-3 overall is very feasible, very possible, and I don't see how, you can't do it. Hey there, John. Glad to have you here. But like I said earlier in the video, Ole Miss has a pretty schedule. I mean, it's not daunting, but it's pretty tough. But with the talent they have, I don't care if Pete Golding can't coach a lick. If they go worse than 8-4, they should shut the program down, because the talent they have, they shouldn't lose more than 4 games. And that's the maximum amount of games they should lose. Hey there, Wyatt. I just got done doing my 2026 season prediction for Ole Miss, and I've got them going 7-2 in the SEC, 9-3 overall. Conference losses to Georgia and Texas, and a non-conference loss to start the season on Sunday, September the 6th, against Louisville. So any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. Did you hear about the shuttlecraft full of Elvis impersonators that crashed on the way to Las Vegas? Nobody was hurt, but they were all shook up. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life will be over by the count. Tell your friends and family how much you love them.